Record. Jillian, it is so good to have you on the Jewelry Business Academy podcast today. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this episode, and I've really been looking forward to chatting to you and having you on the podcast because it is an extra special episode as you've been a part of the Jewelry Business Academy and the community for a few months now. And I've been working in depth with you, and I know you and your business really, really well. And I know that your story is really going to inspire so many jewelry business owners. So before we dive in, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners and share a little bit of your background and how you got to where you are today with your jewelry business, Woven Stone?
Yeah, so my name is Jillian Schumacher, and my company is Woven Stone. I started it in 2015. So I moved to the island from Alberta, and I was waitressing at the time. And I just noticed that there was a bunch of market events popping up in and around the area. And I had been making jewelry just for fun, like little friendship bracelets and things like that. I had done a lot of traveling for the years prior to that. So I was always collecting little bracelets to each place with each place that I went to. And yeah, so I decided to make pieces myself. And when I noticed all the market events popping up, I kind of was thinking, maybe I could give one of those a go. So I decided to sign up for one, and that's kind of how it all started. And it's been quite the journey since.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that you dived in that way. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that transition from waitressing to starting your own business, because that's quite a big shift. And I know that there's going to be a lot of listeners who are going through a very similar journey as you. Maybe they're at that stage right now of leaving a full-time job to go into their business, which can feel so, so scary. So what would your advice be to like your younger self or to somebody in a similar position as you who's in that phase of making that transition? What do you wish you had known then, or is there anything that you wish you had done differently?
Yeah, so I jumped in pretty headfirst. I was done with the waitressing thing and looking for a change. And once I set up at my first market and made some sales and got that kind of incentive that I could actually do this, that gave me this courage to pursue it full time. So I think because I did pursue it full time right off the bat, like pretty quickly, I didn't, stick with, I think I stuck waitressing for a couple months until I just went full time with my business. It did put a little added pressure on me. So I would maybe recommend to other people who are wanting to pursue jewelry to maybe plan out their transition a little more realistically. I mean, it worked out for me because I was ready to go after it and I put a lot of time and energy into it. So it worked out, but it was pretty intense and I burnt out pretty quick after the first couple years. So, yeah, that's kind of how the transition went for me, but I learned a lot along the way. And I think jumping right into it also forced me to commit to it in a sense of, there's no going back. I didn't have this safety net of another job. So that was actually a positive because it was forced me to think to myself, okay, how badly do I want this? How badly do I want to make this work? So I think that part was a positive, but it was just more so not having the right systems in place, not really having a team in place. So everything was on me. And it was just a lot to jump into that way. So yeah.
I love that because, I had a very similar approach years ago when I started my business. I dived headfirst into it full time within 3 months. And I'm the type of person, and it sounds like you are as well, where we know that if we have no way out, we'll make it work. And it's a very, there's a certain type of person that it takes to be able to do that. And some people thrive under that pressure, but it's not for everyone and it can almost break you. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, you know what? I thrive under pressure. I highly recommend you don't put yourself under that position because you do not understand the level of lows that entrepreneurship can throw at you when you do that. I'm glad it worked out for you. I'm glad it worked out for me. But it is something that if you are listening to this and you have the power to actually plan out your transition really well, to do it strategically, to do it so you're not under that financial pressure, it can make it a lot more enjoyable. But I love that. I love that you did transition. I love that you just made it work. What would you say is the like one biggest lesson you learned from that transition process?
I think one of the biggest lessons would be from the start, having the right team and support in place. So whether it would have been, a business coach like yourself, or finding the right people to help in the right areas, just kind of putting together a little team, or sourcing more help in terms of resources and things like that, so that you're kind of going into it feeling more supported and not just this one person show that's trying to figure out every aspect on your own. I think that was the biggest learning curve for me. And looking back, I could have had a lot more support from the beginning, which would have been helpful.
Yeah, 100%. I look back as well, and I like it's hard, and it's hard doing it on your own, and having that support makes such a difference. And I was going to chat to you about this a little bit later, but now that we're chatting about coaching anyway, I'd love to just touch on quickly how coaching has supported you over the past few months, because you have been a part of my program, the Jewelry Business Academy, and we're still working together. And I'd love it if you could briefly just share your experience of the program for any listeners who are curious about the Jewelry Business Academy. So to start with, can you just share sort of how you were feeling before we started working together? What made you realize that you were ready to be supported on your journey?
Yeah, so before we started working together, I was just feeling pretty stuck, pretty unmotivated. I was doing well in terms of sales and the numbers that I was wanting to hit for the year. I had had some really successful years, especially prior to COVID, but I had just kind of lost direction and this sense of I didn't have a lot of clarity, and I wasn't waking up every morning knowing what I was going to do that day. I kind of knew the areas of my business that I wanted to focus on and expand in, but I didn't have any plans in place or any strategies really. So I just felt pretty all over the place, and that I didn't know what I was doing. Even though I had been doing a good job, I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. So that's kind of how I would explain going into it.
Yeah. And, I think that's something that a lot of business owners feel at multiple stages of their business, whether they're scaling to six figures, multiple six figures. There is often a point in your business where you feel a little bit like you've lost clarity and direction, even though you're doing well. So I think a lot of listeners may resonate with those feelings. So what is your experience in the program been like? How do you feel now? What shifts have you experienced in your mindset and your business over the past few months?
It's just been amazing. I wish I would have found you 7 years ago from the start, because it's been so incredible for me just to implement all these different systems and put those in place. Really get clear on what my why is and what my big goals are and what kind of lifestyle I want to have. Really dial in on that. And it's just been amazing. I can't say enough about your program and how much it's changed my business. Simplifying things, really just putting the right systems in place has made all the difference. And having the strategies, planning out everything, from your accounting to your Instagram content to your monthly goals, just the planning aspect has been a game changer for me. It's just been an amazing experience, and I'm feeling like I have direction now, and that's also bringing back my passion, and that feeds into the creativity. So it all just goes together, and I feel like I'm coming back to life. So it's just been amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. I am so happy to hear that. And it's been such a pleasure working with you over the past few months because, you know, you really take everything and you put it into your business. You implement it immediately. And that's why you've been doing so well. So it's so good to see and so good to hear that you're feeling so much more clarity in terms of where you're going and what you're doing each day in your business as well. So what would your advice be to someone who is listening to this and knows that they need more clarity, they need more focus and structure and strategy in their business, in moving their business forward, but they're feeling anxious about making the investment in themselves and their business?
I think advice I would give would be that investing in yourself and investing in your business is one of the best things that you can do. And to be able to look at it long term versus the short term. I think sometimes we get caught up in the short term and this fear of trying to hold on to your money because you want to just save it. And it's hard to think about investing into something that you don't know where it's going to get you or if it's going to be worthwhile. But I think when you find the right person that feels right and listening to your gut on that, and investing in yourself and in your business, it's the big picture that's really going to go a long way. And there's nothing better than investing in yourself. So I would say, you know, you have to take risks in business in general. And yeah, sometimes you just have to hope for the best, but it's definitely been worth it for me. So
amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. And I totally agree with you. You know, you do have to trust your gut. You have to trust how you're feeling in terms of making that investment and knowing what's going to be best for you and your business. And I'm the same. I've never had a business or life investment that I've regretted at this stage, which has been really good. And it's incredible the impact it has on the trajectory of your business and your life in the long term as well. So I would love to chat a little bit about social media because you are very active on social media, on Instagram, and you're building a really strong community around your brand. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've built this community around your brand through your content and one piece of advice for listeners looking to do the same?
Yeah. So Instagram, what a world. It's such a love-hate, but I feel like, especially since working with you, I've started to really enjoy it once you start to implement certain things and you see that people are responding to it and interacting with you. That's, I feel like, where it gets really fun. In terms of just building a community, I think being authentic is just the best way to go, you know, showing behind the scenes parts of your life, just like the really raw stuff of packaging orders or getting ready for a market, or even just sitting on the couch and having coffee with my dogs in the morning. I think that really builds trust with people. People can connect with those kinds of things. And so, just showing up on there. And a big one for me was not putting so much pressure on myself to have everything all together and for it to be perfect on social media. You know, before it was all about having the perfect post and having it edited perfectly. And now when I go on there, I just show up as me and put out whatever it is that day. If it's messy, if I haven't washed my face yet, you just show up. And I think people connect with, like, we're all just people and we all just want to connect. So being your real raw self, I think, is a good way to go.
I love that. And honestly, when you go onto your page, I think your Instagram's Woven Stone Co. So anyone listening can go check it out. But when you go on your page, you can feel like you're enjoying creating the content. Like it feels light and fun and authentic all at the same time. So you've done a really good job balancing that and also just enjoying the process and making it easy for yourself. And that kind of brings me to another question, because I know you've now like really embraced being the face of your brand.
Yes.
How was that? How was that transition?
The transition was rough. I'm not going to lie. It's funny looking back on it now, but when I started working with you and you challenged me to show up every day on Instagram stories, I was mortified. I was so nervous. I actually remember thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. It seemed like such a challenge. And I think it's really like just getting comfortable and taking that pressure off made all the difference for me. And I think once you do it enough and you start to enjoy it, it just becomes a part of your day. So yeah, showing up now and showing my face is easy. I don't even think twice about it, but I remember at the start, it was very nerve-wracking. So it's kind of cool to see when you stick with something, it takes the edge off and you just becomes normal.
Yeah, it kind of is like a form of therapy in a way. Like, what are all the things that you're scared of? Let's go and do them until you're no longer afraid. But
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. And you've really embraced that. So do you have one piece of advice for somebody who's listening, who really does not want to be the face of their business, does not want to be seen on video? Because I know there's a lot of people like that. Do you have one piece of advice you'd give, like, to yourself a few months ago, or to anyone listening who's in that position?
Yeah, I would just say that no one really cares, like in terms of, I don't know, how you look or what you're wearing. Like nobody actually really cares when you think about it. So I think just to show up and to show yourself as a person and own your business, it's just really important for people to see. And especially with jewelry, there's so many jewelry brands out there. And so one of the main things that differentiates you is the person behind the brand. So I think showing up and having people connect with you, it also builds trust with your brand. There's just so many pros to it. So I would just say, try to take that plunge and just show up, and it'll get easier, and to just go for it.
Such good advice. Be scared and do it anyway.
Yeah,
Don't recommend
exactly.
for everything, but in this situation, it's a safe thing, Be scared and do it anyway. Show up and just take the plunge. I love that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I talk about this a lot, that there's a lot of jewelry businesses out there. It's a very saturated industry, but the reality is that there are businesses that are going to always thrive. There are businesses that are new that are going to thrive. And there's businesses that aren't ever going to really take off, or are going to hit plateaus. And you have to look at what's the differentiating factor. The only thing that you have control over is you. You are the only thing that nobody can replicate. They can literally replicate every design, name, collection in your business. And that's the reality of the jewelry industry. And it does happen. But they can't replicate you and the energy with which you show up in the community you've built. It's impossible to do that. So really embracing, showing up as you are, has such a big impact on your business. So I love that you shared that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd love to know, what are some of the highlights of your entrepreneurial journey?
Ooh, I mean, there's been so many highlights. Just the people that I've met along the way has been amazing. Obviously doing like really good sales at a market, or just hitting these big milestones that I never thought that I could hit. That's been really amazing. Just the community that I've built has been incredible. There's been so many amazing parts to my journey, that just all of it, creating one of a kind pieces and doing a launch and having people buy almost all of them and selling out, just those kinds of things it's pretty amazing, because you make these pieces and there's always a part of your mind that thinks, oh, are people going to like these, or are people going to, are they going to resonate with this piece? And so to have people buy your pieces, it's just so confirming and the best feeling. It means a lot.
I love that.
Yeah.
So many highlights, which is amazing to have that over your years of entrepreneurship. And I know you touched on events. So you do a lot of in-person events and you have a dreamy display. And I'd love
Thanks.
to know what your thoughts are when it comes to events, because I know after COVID, a lot of new businesses especially are avoiding doing events altogether. And there is a time and a place for that. But what is your thoughts around that? How much value do you get from meeting your customers in person?
Yeah, I think events are really valuable in terms of meeting people, growing your customer base. People always like to meet the maker face to face, and just getting to actually talk to your customer. I think it almost puts your jewelry to life because you're the person who's created the pieces and knows why you created the pieces. So to be able to tell your customers that part of your story, I
Mm-hmm.
think is really, really important. And yeah, it's just a really great way to grow your customer base really quickly and get your face out there. People, they remember, and then in the future they can say, "Hey, I met you at this event." And it's just, yeah, it's a really good way to connect with people.
Mm, I love that. Yeah, I think it's such an underrated form of market research.
Yeah,
You can
absolutely.
you can learn so much at events that you can't get online, you can't get from TikTok, you can't get from Instagram. And it helps you, especially I think in the early years of your business, to really create that core collection that is
Yes.
really loved by people. It helps you refine it so quickly. It helps you refine your messaging and the words you use when you're talking about your pieces, because you can literally see people's facial expressions as you're explaining what you're doing and as you're describing the pieces. And you can see when they're flinching, when they're like all more excited, more interested.
Yeah.
You learn so much by being curious about how people are reacting and what questions they're asking and all of that. So
That's, yeah, very true. You learn so much. And it is the perfect way to like test new products as well. I've made a lot of new things where I wasn't sure how they were going to go. So you bring them to a market and you get to see people's reaction. So yeah, it is a really good way to test the market with new pieces and refine the collection that you already have for
mm,
sure.
yeah, definitely. So I know we chatted about highlights, but I'd love to know, what is like one of the biggest challenges you've faced in your business or as an entrepreneur, and
Ooh,
how did you overcome it? What mindset work did you have to do?
challenges. I would just say the overall challenges of putting a lot of time and energy into something, whether it's a collaboration or a product launch, doing all the planning, all of the work up front, and then it being a total flop,
Mhm.
and not letting those experiences stop you because, I've had some launches where it was just a total burn, and you can really get in your head with those things. But I think once you can just like take them as learning opportunities and take a look at like, oh, I could have done this differently, or maybe it was my marketing strategy was lacking, or just like take them as learning opportunities versus
Mm,
letting it stop you on your path. I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned is overall resilience and just learning to brush those things off and take them as learning opportunities versus really letting them get to you and make you feel like you're a failure and that you can't do this. Yeah. So I would say
mm.
that.
Yeah, I love that. Resilience is such an important thing you have to build as an entrepreneur. I always like to say that
Yeah.
entrepreneurship's just like a huge personal growth journey on steroids. If you want to grow as an
Yes.
individual, start a business. Nothing's going to challenge you more
Oh, it's
and
so
force you to
true.
grow. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
especially when you have like so much of an attachment to your business and you don't have that separation between yourself and your business. Then when things
mhm,
do go wrong, it can feel so personal and so devastating. It can feel like such a direct hit to yourself
mhm.
versus being able to look at it like from a business perspective, I think can be really helpful, like doing that separation.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's a
definitely.
big thing I've had to learn is separating myself from my business.
Yeah, you know what? practicing like the art of detaching from your results, detaching from what people say is a huge part of being successful in business. Because if you are emotionally affected by anything people say or by sales or what number you're hitting, whatever, it's really going to hinder you. But I also love how you shared that you reframe mistakes or lessons learned mistakes as lessons learned, because that's a big one as well. If you can reframe and just be like, you know what I do in business is I'm just like, I want to know that I'm making mistakes quickly and moving on.
Yes.
You learn so much by just doing something on Monday instead of waiting till Friday till it's perfect. I'd rather do something on Monday, have results by Tuesday, know whether it was a good, bad decision, and then move forward and make maybe 3 decisions over that week instead of waiting till Friday when it's like perfect, and you slow the whole process. So I love that reframe as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we did just chat a little bit about like how much heart and soul you put into your business and practicing the art of detachment to your results and what people are saying. But have you experienced any negative comments, like in the early days of your business, maybe from people who weren't very supportive of you starting a business or maybe your designs? And can you share if that happened to you, how you handled it? And if you have any advice for listeners who are struggling with the same thing, because people can be brutal in the first few years of business.
Yeah. And especially jewelry. I mean, it's like, what other thing that are people not going to take seriously, right? I would say overall, I had a lot of support. Like my friends and family, my close friends and family were very supportive. If anything, I think people just maybe thought it was going to be a short-lived thing, kind of, oh, how realistic is this? I'd get some people checking in and asking like how my hobby is. And then you could just tell with certain comments that they didn't think that it was going to be like a serious business. So I think at the start that kind of bothered me, and I felt like I had something to prove to everybody. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't really matter. I think staying focused on what you want for your life, that's all that really matters. And I mean, markets. you get some real gems at the market events.
I know,
right?
People like to share their honest opinion at events. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and you'll get some pretty harsh comments, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you're not going to please everyone. Not everyone's going to like your stuff. It's not going to be for everybody. So I think just really not taking things personally is the best way to go, and being really solid in yourself and what you're doing, and just loving your jewelry yourself is all that matters.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And, it's funny that you brought up the people at events, because people have no filter at events. But
no,
for anyone who's listening to this and is very offended by what somebody said at events, I just want you to remember that if your brand doesn't evoke a really strong emotion from someone, it's not niche enough. So that means like if somebody goes to your page, they either love or hate your stuff. That means you're really niched, and that means you're going to have really strong like community around you. If it's very like, oh yeah, this is all nice, well, you don't have loyal like haters or loyal lovers. So it's kind of in between. So just when you see people and they're not very nice about your jewelry at an event, just be like, okay, I'm on the right track, because she's not my ideal customer and she really feels strongly about this, which means the people who love my stuff feel really strongly about it as well. So reframe it, because those people aren't very helpful.
Yes, that's so true.
Okay, so can we chat a little bit more about mindset? Because entrepreneurship is really a mindset game at the end of the day, and it's really easy to burn out. I mean, I've burnt out in the past. I see jewelry business owners burning out, and it's absolutely no joke, and can take months to years to really recover from. And what I see people doing is they keep working until they've actually fully hit burnout. They don't look at the warning signs. They don't take a step back. They don't let themselves rest. So What would you say to somebody who's listening right now who is maybe feeling burnt out? Have you felt burnt out in the past? Like, what's your experience with this been? And do you have any
Oh,
advice in terms of what you're trying to do now to avoid that?
yeah. I mean, my advice would be go take a nap. Like right now, stop what you're doing and go take a nap because you're not going to get anywhere by like pushing through. I've definitely had a lot of experience with burnout, and it's still something that I struggle with in terms of setting healthy boundaries with my work and my personal life. I think when you are so passionate about something and so excited about it, you want to just give it your all, and you want to just work, work, work. And at the end of the day, it's just not sustainable if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not taking time off and putting the right boundaries in place to rest and do all those things. So I would definitely recommend just having more of a healthy mindset in terms of boundaries with your life and your business. And that's going to be more sustainable in the long run because, yeah, you're going to burn out quick if you're trying to do it all at once. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
not fun when you reach that place because then you've lost the joy in your business as well. And you lose the motivation, the creativity, all of those things. So slow and steady wins the
Mm-hmm.
race.
Yeah, that's so, so true. Slow and steady. Like you're playing the long game. Business is a long game. When people just
Mm-hmm.
aim for like overnight success and they just hustle nonstop for periods of time. Remember that business is a long game. If you're gonna do that, you're not gonna make it to the end. You want to set yourself
Absolutely.
up sustainably, and you also want to have a life while you build your
Mm-hmm.
business. It's not mutually exclusive. You don't have to just be hustling for 7, 8, 10 years before you give yourself permission to have a life and have friends and do things outside of your business.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a huge believer in how you start your day affects the rest of your life and your business. So I'd love to know how you start your mornings. Do you have a morning routine? How do you sort of set yourself up for a successful day?
Yeah, so I kind of have a morning routine. It's not like a strict one by any means, but usually I wake up around 7 o'clock ish. And I like to just start the day off slow, I would say. So I'll let my dogs out, I'll feed them breakfast. That's kind of the first thing I do. And then I usually like to make a hot drink. So usually like a matcha or and then I like to just kind of sit and cuddle with my dogs for a little bit, even though we had been cuddling all night. I'm like, oh, we're awake. Let's cuddle more.
So
So
cute.
yeah. And then usually like lately I've been doing yoga, just kind of a short yoga practice to like get my body moving and stretch, work out the kinks. And then I'll usually jump into work anywhere between like 9 to 10 o'clock, depending on how I'm feeling. Yeah, check my emails, things like that. But I usually like to take a couple of hours when I wake up just to kind of ease into the day and not be doing too much other than cuddling with my dogs.
I love that. Sounds like a dreamy morning routine.
Yeah.
And I'm similar. I like a slow start to the mornings. I'm not into rushing and go, go, go. So I love that. And I love seeing all your dog posts on Instagram. They're so sweet. And they actually joined us on our group call the other day, which was adorable.
Yeah, I mean, they had been asking me if they could be a part of the call, so
They had.
I finally
So
gave in.
cute. So cute. Okay, so you have a lot going on. You have multiple product launches that you're launching, you have sales, you have events, you have online orders, you have wholesale stuff. So how do you stay on track with all of this going on? Like, how do you keep your focus on what you need to be doing? How do you hone in on your goals and just stay on track?
Well, since working with you, I think that's been a game changer for me because that's really helped me with prioritizing everything in terms of what needs to get done now, what can get put on the back burner. Really just focusing on, yeah, where I need to be putting my energy. I don't need to be doing everything all at once and be trying to improve all these different areas of my business all at once. So really just looking at the different seasons, kind of what I have coming up for the next week. I like to make lists for the next week and kind of lay out like these are my must do's in terms of my priorities. Really focus on those things, and then the other things can kind of be secondary. But yeah, I think just really looking at the season and what I have going on and what really needs my time and attention and getting clear on those things helps.
Amazing. Getting clear on the revenue driving things for the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So that kind of brings me to another question, because I know that you have your products in a lot of stores across Canada. So can you chat to us a little bit about that, how you got your first store, and like one piece of advice for anyone who is wanting to get their jewelry into more stores, but is feeling hesitant to reach out and go ahead with that?
Yeah, so I think the first store I got my pieces into was My Chosen Cafe. It's this little cute place. I remember I approached the owner. I had a little suitcase with like all my pieces. It's so cringy thinking about it now, but I had all my pieces in the suitcase, like not organized. They were literally just all in there. And it was atrocious. This lady, bless her heart, probably just was like, oh, this girl wants to like make a go of it. I'm gonna like give her a chance because this is my good deed of the month. But so she was the first store. They were the first store I got my pieces into, and it was really good because from there, obviously I didn't have like systems in place or anything like that, and so it really forced me to take a look at that. And my biggest advice would be maybe to do things the right way from the start. So to really have like a more organized approach. I've kind of figured things out along the way, a lot of like trial and error, which it's been a bit messy in terms of maintaining stores, because once you're in so many, then you're trying to maintain all your sales reports and the inventory and everything else. And if you don't have those right systems in place, it can get really overwhelming and really messy. So if I could go back, I would have maybe focused on putting these right systems in place right from the start, and having a very like clear, clean approach to like, yeah, just all my systems. And that would have made things easier for me. But I'm getting better at organizing. So yeah, it's a journey.
It sure is a journey. But that's incredible. And what would you say is your favorite thing about having your products in stores all over the place, all over Canada?
I think just having people message you, or they send you a photo and they tell you, oh, I picked up this piece at this place. And if it's in Calgary or wherever it is, it's just really cool to know that people are seeing your places and seeing your pieces or getting your pieces from various stores all over. It's a really neat feeling just to know that they are getting exposure that way, and to see that people are enjoying them. Yeah, that part's been really cool.
And the fact that they are taking the time to go find you and message you and tell you that they got your pieces in stores is just so incredible. It shows what strong brand loyalty you've built. And that doesn't come through anything else other than being authentic and really being somebody that people want to support, and also giving your customers value. That kind of loyalty doesn't come overnight. Like, you really have to earn that. So I love that you're experiencing that. Okay, so what advice would you give to somebody who's listening to this, who's feeling inspired and realize that, you know what, maybe one day I could actually launch my own jewelry business, or I could turn this hobby of mine into a business, but I just don't really know where to start, and the jewelry industry feels really saturated, and I don't know if there's space for me? What would be one piece of advice that you would give them?
I would say there absolutely is space for you, because there is only like one you. And so that's the thing that you're going to be bringing to the table, is yourself and your unique creations and visions. And there's always room for that. So I would say just to try to drown out the noise of, the fears and the things that can get in the way, and know that if you want something bad enough, you absolutely can make it happen. I mean, it sounds a bit corny, but believe in yourself.
Yeah, I agree. If you
Yeah.
can imagine it, you can make it happen. And actually, I was reading this really cool book. Now I can't remember the title a few weeks ago, and it was talking about how if you want things to happen, you actually have to first imagine it and picture it clearly. You can't just be walking blindly towards making it happen. You have to be very clear in your mind, and then you take the next steps of actually putting it into action. So I love that.
Yeah, me too.
So have you ever experienced imposter syndrome being a jewelry designer and entrepreneur over the years?
Definitely. I mean, I remember when people used to ask me what I do and I say I had a business or a jewelry business, I felt really weird saying that. Um, Even now, sometimes I'll get in my head about it, and it's just, yeah, imposter syndrome is weird. I don't even know how to really explain it, but it's a thing.
It sure is.
Mm-hmm.
What has been kind of the best thing that has helped you overcome those feelings when they come up?
I think just knowing that I've worked really hard for what I've accomplished, and that I am a successful business owner, and that, I've put the work in, I've put all the energy into doing those things. So, it makes sense why I am what I am. I don't know. And the rest is just kind of a bunch of baloney. I don't know.
I love that. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Do you have a book that has really impacted your journey over the past few years as an entrepreneur? Is there any book that's really impacted your journey in either business or life that you feel that other entrepreneurs and business owners would really benefit from?
Not really, to be honest. I mean, I've been collecting a whole book list from your podcasts.
Yeah.
I want to start reading more. Most of the books that I do read, when I do read, it's like fiction or whatever. So I do want to start getting more into reading about specifically business and things like that. So I don't specifically have a book, but definitely going to start reading more. Maybe yours, perhaps.
I'm not paying her to say this, guys.
No, for real. Like, your podcast has been amazing. And I was listening to the episodes before we started working together. And yeah, that was actually what hooked me, was listening to all the episodes and just feeling like you really knew what you were talking about. And I resonated with all the different topics. So your podcast is my favorite.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I will link that in the show notes. I always say I'm going to link the book, but we'll link the podcast.
Perfect.
Okay, amazing. Jillian, it's been so much fun chatting to you and having you on the podcast today. And to wrap up our chat, I'd love to ask you one last question. What would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've learned in all your years of business and entrepreneurship?
Oh, the biggest lesson. I would have to say that you can't do it all. Like, you're only one person. So from the start, just to get the right kind of support in all the different areas, reach out for help. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Well, most importantly, you don't have to prove to yourself that you're like have to do it all. So that's been my biggest lesson, is learning to get the right support in the right areas and reach out to people, ask for help, get the right people on your team. That would be, the best, biggest lesson I've learned. And don't take things personally. Have the right boundaries in place. That's another big one. Have the right boundaries. Yeah, I would maybe say that's actually first.
Yeah, boundaries are really challenging. I think it's I think I was chatting to you about this the other day, but people struggle more with implementing boundaries in their business than they do with implementing like Instagram strategies. Boundaries is like
Yes.
the thing that everyone's like, oh, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah. And I still have a hard time with it today. So that's a big lesson I'm still learning and working on. So that maybe takes the cake.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay, Gillian, thank you so much for being here and for sharing so much of your insights and your story with our listeners. I know a lot of people are going to be feeling really inspired and they're going to want to follow along on your journey and connect with you. So where can they find you and how can our listeners support you?
Yeah. So my website is www.wovenstone.co. My Instagram is wovenstoneco. And I'm also on TikTok. Haven't been posting a lot on there, but I want to start getting into TikTok more. So you can follow me on all of those platforms. And yeah, if you just want to follow me there, and I'll be doing like new launches and releases all the time. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Amazing. Can you share a little bit more about your jewelry? Because I don't know if we touched on it at the beginning, but for anyone who can't remember, can you just share a little bit more about your jewelry?
Yeah, so I make meaningful and unique West Coast gemstone jewelry for every day. So a lot of leather and gemstone combinations. I have pieces for women and men. My bracelets are kind of what I specialize in. So a lot of really unique combinations with the stones and designs. Yeah, and just kind of casual but semi-formal. So pretty versatile in that sense. And a very kind of a natural West Coast kind of feel.
They have such a lovely vibe. I love your
Thanks.
pieces and they're just gorgeous. They're kind of pieces you can wear every single day and they make such lovely gifts as well. And for anyone who is listening to this before the holidays and you're gift shopping, Gillian has some amazing like gift sets and also the kits. Do you want to talk about the kits?
Yeah, the kits I just released a month ago or a couple weeks ago. I'm super excited about them. So they're bracelet kits where you can learn how to make your own piece. I have 5 different styles, so everything's packaged up in there for you. And then you get a video tutorial of me like teaching you how to make the piece. So they're just a really, really fun way to, if you like doing anything crafty, if you want to, have a group of girlfriends get together and all make a piece together, something fun to do with other people, or just a really good gift idea as well. If you know somebody that is crafty and likes making things, or if you want to make the piece yourself and then gift it to somebody, it's a really meaningful gift. So yeah, I love them and it's been fun to launch them. And I also have the little private Facebook group for them. So
Yeah,
when
I
you get
love
the
those
kit,
kits. I love the
thank
kits. I
you.
love the community around it. And I think it's just such a fun gift for people and such a meaningful gift. And also like nice for team building for businesses and stuff like that as well. And
Yeah.
families and people with children at home over the holidays. So I love that. So I will link all of the links that you've shared with us in the show notes. So anyone listening can go and click and go follow Gillian, go follow along on her journey, meet her dogs, Annie and Wally. They're super cute. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today, Gillian. It's been so much fun chatting to you and so much fun hearing more about your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is like a little dream come true. So thank you. It's my first podcast ever. I'm very excited
Uh,
about it.
I'm
So
so
thanks for
happy you
having
could come on the
me.
first podcast with me. I'm so excited about that.
Me too. Thank you.